the new feature, FormParts, allows you to create these pieces of a form, these reusable pieces of a form, and you'll get an option of whether you want it to be reusable or whether you want it to be more like our previous library objects. Okay? And I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of the template area here, because we're actually also shipping a number of pre-built form parts, all of which they have that property that they're kind of like the older library objects. So they're sort of a fire and forget. You drop them into one form, and then they are configurable within that form, and any changes you make within that form don't affect the other form. But you also get your own user form parts area, and for a number of these, as you can see, I've made a couple of them already, having done this demo before. And these are additions to your palette that allow you to construct your own custom-built fragments that you can then drag and drop. So you can create your own address blocks, your own pieces of form that do things like provide the common logo experience, and then if you update that form part later, you can then ask to have the entire form updated. Furthermore, in this release, I just wanted to quickly mention that in the help here of the Lotus Forms Designer, this is a true Eclipse-based product. So if you go install new software with our product, you can actually go into the product and install the CVS or SVN plugins into the product that allow you to do code sharing with other Forms developers if you choose to do that, so that then you can have one person changing form parts, and then another person can update their project from a central SVN repository, and then start taking advantage of those changes to form parts, to shared WSDLs, shared XML schemas, all of those different roles that you might have in a form application development lifecycle could be handled by different members of a team, and you can use a collaboration tooling to share those assets together. Okay. Form parts seems to be one of those things that's particularly useful for sharing over time, so it seems a good idea to mention it at least. So anyway, in order to create a form part, it's really very similar to creating a whole new Lotus form. You just say create a new Lotus form part instead, and you get this essentially the same design canvas as you get for creating a whole form. It has a slightly different background, so you get a visual cue that you're not designing a whole form, that you're just designing a form part. But otherwise, it's the same drag and drop, cut and paste, whatever design canvas that you're used to. So what I'm going to do in this demo is I'm going to create the sample logo, if you will. So I'm doing a little disk swapping here because unfortunately I'm running a lot of the server stuff locally here. So sample logo 2 today. So I'm starting to do a little disk swapping here. But anyway, so I start out with an empty design canvas, and what I'm going to do for this demo is I'm going to assume that this customer wants to create. They have this form that has their logo information on it, and they just want to create that as a reusable asset. So, yes, you could drag and drop from the design palette, but you can also cut and paste from other forms. If you have pre-existing things that you want, just paste them on in. Once you paste them on in, you can drag and drop them, do all the normal things that you do for them. And then I'm going to save this form part on out as sample logo 2. Okay. And then I'm going to go back to the form that I was just operating on a minute ago, and I'm going to say, okay, now I want to start using that form part. So I delete whatever was there, because it was only within that form. Now if I go down to the that form part store, you see my new sample form part is already available to be dragged and dropped in this object, and you can see here I have my ability to configure these sorts of things, and up to and including deciding whether it's a reusable part or not. Okay. So now I've basically done the same. I've got the same form as I had before, only now it's using a reusable part instead. So let me just grab another. Let me grab my web service form here, just as another example, and let me drag and drop my logo onto that. You can see what's happening. All right, and let me save that out as s.xfdl. So that'll be out on the hard drive there. So now that that's out on the hard drive, I'm actually going to close it so you can see what happens here. All right. So let's decide that our art gallery wants to have a different logo image. So let me go and pick. You may guess by now is maybe my favorite picture to show. So pop that on in there, and maybe I'll try to get a little smaller so that it's still in keeping with the rest of the logo material. Okay, so now I've amended my form part, and for any forms that are in the design experience, you know, pretty much as soon as you flip over to them, the design experience will figure out that the form part's been updated, and so yes, you can say do that now, and then you're done. Okay, and it really is that easy. But you also have the capability of choosing update my form parts, and that will allow you to go into a directory or any set of forms and search for the existence of form parts within those forms. All right, the design experience will, when you're doing an update, it's a disk-based update, so it'll put an X by things that are in the editor, and it tells you that this is in the editor, and as soon as you look at it, it'll update it there. We don't want there to be a difference between what's on disk and what's in the design experience. But for other forms that are already in that area that I selected, you can pick them and hit finish, and it will do the update for you of all of those forms. And then you're basically done at that point. I actually had 2 forms there that were already using this, so it tells me it processed 5 forms, and it found that there were that this form part was in a couple of them. So, and if I go and open that test form, you will see that it was updated actually on disk.
So obviously, the logo is a good example, but you could have legal text that might need to change in a set of forms, or a name address block where you want to add an extra address line in it, whatever. Those are all great examples of how you can standardize a part of a form, and then later on, because you've used that feature, make easy changes to a host of forms as opposed to having to go into each form one by one to make the updates.
Yeah, so that, for example, here's the updated form with the picture of the pleadees in the background. But yeah, as Keith is saying, these form parts allow you to not just store user interface elements, as I've shown you. They actually can store all of the componentry necessary to run a web service, for example. So you could, have one person whose specialty is creating the hookups to web services, and that person can create certain form parts that can then be reused by other members of the team, for example. Okay. So whether it's data constraints or calculations or the submissions needed by a web service, all of that can also go into these form parts as well.